morning.
Good morning.
Today is December the 20th, 2007, and we are interviewing Mr. Keith Deveraux.
Yes, Keith Xavier Hill Deveraux.
Okay. Would you like to tell us something about you, your genealogy, your background, just something about you?
Yes, I grew up here in Wilkes County. From the age of a little boy, I've lived here practically all my life, except when I went off to school and traveled. I am the product of Wilkes County educators. My mother, the late Fay Hill Harrison, was a teacher, started out at Lincoln Heights teaching at the all-black high school. Then she went on to integrate at Wilkes Central, where she taught 12th grade English. Then she got into administration and served as assistant principal at local elementary schools in Wilkes County, and ultimately became principal of North Wilkesboro Elementary School. So I've had ties to the Wilkes County community, the North Wilkesboro area, Wilkesboro, for most of the 36 years that I've been in existence.
Okay, so talking about your mother being at Lincoln Heights, where did you go to school?
I went to school much after the integration and all. I went to Wilkes Central Senior High School.
Okay, and elementary school?
Elementary school, I went to C.C. Wright Elementary School and then Woodward Junior High.
Okay. Today, we're talking about some of the issues that the blacks or the Afro-Americans faced
Yes.
here in Wilkes County, some of the hardships and some of the privileges and how it affected different people. You're being from an educational family. Did you study very much about the blacks in history, such as the Revolutionary War or Civil War? Did you study? Do you know very much
Yes.
about those?
Most of that I came to know when I studied at Appalachian State University, where I got my master's degree in political science with a minor in public management. The curriculum hadn't, I guess, had changed much after I'd got out of the public school, where now there's been a concentration on the contributions that African Americans made during the Revolutionary War, the Civil Rights Movement. Years ago, our history books didn't really delve into that much of it. So it's just afterwards where, you learn all the contributions that blacks have made, that there was, the first black to die in the Revolutionary War and all of that. So the public school, when I was in public school, they didn't do a segment on that. Now, things have changed, and I'm hearing that from educators that they are focusing in on that aspect of it in the education realm in public schools.
From memory, could you tell us some of these things? I don't want to put you on the spot, but if you could bring out some of those, and even Wilkes County, the great people from Wilkes County too, but going back in history some.
Probably within the Revolutionary War period, my mind escapes me to be able to call all that, because really, I guess the era that I would have, substance of would probably be the Civil Rights era, with my parents integrating to teach in all white schools, leaving the all African American schools. That was probably, and I've learned of that because I've heard them talk, and they would talk about it. Where at that point in time, that was really a big thing when my mom left Lincoln Heights to go teach at Wilkes Central, along with some other African Americans. They were the ones that really integrated the teaching field at that point. also, a lot of my accomplishments have come because I stand on the shoulders of other people who sat down at the lunch counters and refused to give up their seats, refused to drink out of segregated water fountains, really stood up and protest and marched for their civil rights. So my generation stands on the shoulders of previous generations where if they had not stood up, then, we wouldn't have the rights to, go to such schools as Appalachian State University, or to attend the high schools of our choice, or to even go into such fields of study that they have made it possible. So, I have to really pay homage to, people like Elizabeth Gritton, my mom, Fay Hill Harrison, Richard Harris, Nellie Harris, Jean Graham. People of that caliber, Jane Dula, Miss Pauline Whittington, people that really took a force and went into the movement to create change and a better atmosphere.
Well, being on the shoulders of those pioneers, did you feel a lot of discrimination during your generation when you were at Wilkes Central?
Not at Wilkes Central. In everyday society, I think where earlier the racism was more overt, it was more open. Today's racism that my generation is facing is more covert. It's not blatant racism where it's just right there in your face, For example, I was shopping one day and I noticed that the sales clerk was just continuously following me wherever I went, and I would go down one aisle and the sales clerk would be right there, and so I would just wander around, and after a while, he was just following me everywhere, and I would cut down one aisle and then I'd cut up another aisle. And so he'd lost sight of me. So he was panicking, seeing where I was. And I walked up behind him and I tapped him on the shoulder and I said, "Sir, are you looking for me?" And as I, approached him as his blatantly racism act, he's like, "Oh no, I just wanted to make sure that you didn't need any help. I was wanting to help you." And I said, "Well, I'd been in the store and you had never offered to help, but as I wandered around to browse, and the other people, there was a white gentleman, he had not followed him continuously around." And I told him at that point, I said, was there a problem? Of me looking at the merchandise? And he was saying, no, not at all. I just wanted to make sure that you got the proper help. And so today's racism is more covert. It's more closet racism. I would say that the times have definitely changed from the early years. My generation doesn't have to endure what my parents or my grandparents or elder people in the community once experienced. But it's sadly to say that racism is still prevalent in society today. I don't think it's at the level that it once was, but it is still prevalent. And that has, I guess with racism, it's always bewildered me how someone could hate just because the color of somebody's skin. It goes back to the thing, and I am a true believer in it. Racism is taught. No one is born a racist. It has to be taught, it has to be instilled into society, into the people. So, it's very troubling, and with that, we just have to press forward. I think, how do we deal with it? As society becomes more educated, I think that will alleviate the strains of racism. As society becomes more diverse, Our society has become more diverse than we were 10 years ago. There are people from different ethnic backgrounds coming into the United States, coming into North Carolina, coming into Wilkes County, each year. As the population becomes more diversified, then I think that will also help alleviate some of the racism in society.
Well, do you feel personally that any doors have been closed to you because of the color of skin?
I would have to say no, that I haven't. I've applied for jobs, gotten jobs before. One of the jobs that I held, I was the first African American to serve as director of the Wilkes County Board of Elections. That was a tremendous job. Didn't know how much everybody would be grabbing at you or having a problem. You would, in that position, you made some Democrats mad, you made some Republicans mad, you made some independents mad. I must say that due to my education attainment, the work ethic that my mother instilled in me, and all the people who paved the way for me before, that has enhanced. Then I went on and became the second African American to hold the position of executive director of the North Wilkesboro Housing Authority. Both positions were very rewarding, very challenging, and I have felt that, because of the civil rights movement, because of affirmative action, making the playing field fair and equitable, that African Americans today are in a better position than they were many years ago.
Do you recall if your mother maybe went to Greensboro to help with the civil rights? I don't know what you call it, but anyway, making certain that the civil rights were as they should be in Greensboro.
Probably she and her siblings, they were from Surrey County, so they grew up on to tobacco farms. So it was really, back in those days, a chore to get the transportation from Pilot Mountain, North Carolina, to go to Winston-Salem to participate in sit-in movements and things of that nature. So in that regards, she did a lot of her sit-ins and protesting when she went to college at St. Augustine's College in Raleigh. There, she participated in sit-ins, marches. She says that she remembered that day when Dr. Martin Luther King was shot, and really remembered the day when President John F. Kennedy was assassinated. Those were two tremendous, saddened days in the African American communities. So she did a lot of her civil rights work in Raleigh when she was in college.
When you were growing up, how did you hear about the Ku Klux Klan?
Mainly I heard about those through family members, and also when I was in school, we would see documentaries dealing with the history and all that, and news events, the nightly news when in Greensboro, when the Klan thing in Raleigh was there and the shootings happened. So I learned mine more through history. Then in high school, I found it very interesting. That's when the Klan held a march in Wilkes County that year, and they were marching in downtown North Wilkesboro. So through family members, through educational tools, a great documentary that documents it is Eyes on the Prize by Juan Williams. That is something that every school system should incorporate in their overall teaching element. So through educational aids, family stories and history, that is when I got associated and first knew of the Klan. And then, as a little boy, I asked my mom, I said, why do those people, I called them ghosts when I was a little boy, because I thought, why do those ghosts not like everybody? I couldn't understand why there would be these people dressed in, these white sheets, and why didn't they like black people? Why didn't they like Hispanic or Chinese people? It just went back earlier to, that notion that hatred is taught. We're not born to hate. That is a ideal that is taught and instilled in people, and it always bewildered me. Why do you hate because of the color of one's skin? And my mother's response was that they're just misguided. They don't, they're ignorant, they're uneducated, and they're just not nice people, and that I should not model that substance, that, even though they might hate me, that, I couldn't say that I hated them, because she said, if you hate them, then, they've won, they've consumed you, and they have made you become a part of them. So she never allowed me to say that I hated someone. She said, you can dislike people, but never say you hate something. That's such a strong indignation in itself. And I was saying, well, why do they hate us? And she said, really, Keith, there's just, in this world, there's good people and there's bad people. And she said, those people that joined the KKK, they're bad people, they're misguided, misunderstood, and really, they just don't know why they hate people. She said, I can't tell you. She said, within your span of life, you'll meet good people, bad people, and you are to be associated with the good people.
Wonderful. Do you remember who started the Ku Klux Klan? He's from Greensboro.
It escapes my mind who did that mule.
Do you know Steve Forrest that owns the Brushy Mountain Bee Farm?
Steve Forrest?
Yeah,
okay.
Basically, some of his people. His name was Stephen Bedford Forrest.
Oh, okay.
Well, anyway, okay, talk about the communities in Wilkes County. You said you work for
the North Wilkesboro Housing Authority.
Well, let's see, communities. Are you involved in a lot of the communities, like the civic clubs? I'm
a member of the North Wilkesboro Elks Club, and within that, they go out into the school. They do like a hoop shoot thing, and it's in the area middle schools and all that. So that civic organization gets me into being able to reach out to different communities in Wilkes County. Also through my job, providing affordable housing to people in North Wilkesboro, Wilkes County. We have a total of like 215 apartments that are based on income, which it comes to play a diverse population from African Americans to Caucasians to Hispanic to Asians. So that has diversified our developments, our housing developments, because today society is becoming much more diverse. So it is reflected into our housing developments also. We have a diversified housing population.
Okay, Afro-American schools. Would you like to talk about Afro-American schools?
Well, yes, my dealings with that would be because my mother taught at Lincoln Heights High School. That was an all-black high school here. And she not only taught people there from, North Wilkesboro, people from Sparta had to come from Sparta. They would ride a bus over to Lincoln Heights, which is in Wilkesboro, just to go to school. And she would tell me, about that. And, when I came through, the schools had been integrated. I went to C.C. Wright Elementary, Woodward Junior High, Wilkes Central. So I did not go to a all black African American high school such as Lincoln Heights, but my mother and some of her friends that taught there, they would, after I got older, we would talk about it, and they would tell me, how they made the best education possible for African Americans. They didn't always have all of the essential items, but they were able to provide the African Americans that went to Lincoln Heights with a first-class education. A lot of my mom's former students, they would tell me, at Lincoln Heights, they would laugh and they would say, Miss Hill, that was her maiden name, why do we have to learn Shakespeare? What, and all this. A former student of hers, Billy Coles, says that, he can still to this day remember her drilling Shakespeare into his head. And he was like, but why? Why do we need this? And she said, because this is going to make you a Renaissance person. This is going to make you a more well-rounded person. And the fact, because William Shakespeare is a great writer and I like him, so you're going to have to like him and all. But people like her, Nellie Harris, Jean Graham, they were saying that, even though it was a segregated high school, they still provided a top-rate education for those kids that went to Lincoln Heights, and that is really outstanding.
I can remember as a kid, they had a real good football team over there. Do you remember any of the guys that went over there that played football?
Memory escapes me, other than probably Billy Coles, Paul Robinson, James Harris. Those people were probably on the football team or basketball team. Sylvia Robinson, I know she played basketball for Lincoln Heights. It was just, yet, even though it was segregated, the teachers and administrators there at Lincoln Heights, they instilled a sense of pride, community, and love, and taught their students that they can achieve whatever they set their mind out to.
Okay, games. Did you play in game, like in sports when you were going to Wilkes Central?
I wasn't that athletically inclined. Played Y basketball, and I think that is a great thing for the youth. It develops team sportsmanship, teamwork, team building, leadership skills. At that age, I was growing real fast, and I guess my coordination really didn't catch up with my growth, so I was sort of awkward. So I never played high school sports. When I got to high school sports, got to high school, I developed an interest in student government. So I was vice president of my junior class, and then my senior year, I was student body president at Wilkes Central Senior High School. So I went the student government route as opposed to athletics.
Did they ask about where did you go to college?
College, I went to Appalachian State University, got my undergrad degree there in political science, went on to get a master's degree in political science, a minor in public management. Also, my undergrad, I did a minor in criminal justice. Very happy about my alma mater. We're national championships for Division 1A 3 years in a row. So,
when you graduated, when you told people you went to Appalachian, tell me what they would say.
One response, when I graduated from Appalachian, I would tell some people and some of my African American friends that went, like to other schools, Greensboro or Wilmington, that's like, you went up there? I said, yes. They said, how did you stand the winters? Wasn't it awful cold? I said, well, all you got to do is put a coat on, you know. They said, well, didn't many black people go to school up there? I said, well, no, there were some. I said, it wasn't an overwhelming population, but I said they're wanting to reach out and diversify their student body. And really, I had a great experience at Appalachian State University. But that's the first thing when they say, boy, it gets awful cold up there. How did you weather the winters? And they weren't kidding. It does get cold. You know, when you're off the mountain, you just have to deal with cold temperatures. But when you're on the mountain at, you know, 3,000 elevation and above, you have to deal with wind chill factor. And we always, the big joke in Boone was, if you didn't like the weather, wait about 15 minutes and it would change. But, you know, I guess when my first winter up there, we had a real bad one, and I'd never really seen the snow and sleet come down at an angle and blow around, and where you would have, you know, the snow would blow around and make a whiteout and they would say, well, you know, nobody needs to be out on campus. So that was really new to me when, you know, blowing snow is so hard that, you know, you can't see, and the administration is saying, you know, everybody, you know, after this time, you need to be off the roads and all that.
So you think if you were to go to Michigan now and they ask you where you're from and you said Appalachian State, tell me what you think they would say.
I bet they know where Appalachian State's at. They wouldn't say, where's that at?
When you and I are dead and gone and we're looking at this, tell me why they know. Tell me about their program now, like the three-peat and all that.
Okay. Appalachian State University football team won the National Division 1A championship 3 years in a row. The big joke with Michigan is Michigan State was ranked number one. They were going to play Appalachian State. Michigan probably thought that was going to be just a totally easy game, a blowout game. And here this Division 1A school beats a nationally ranked school. So that was really a big undertaking for them.
So how about the third time?
The third time we beat Delaware University, the Blue Hens. Just last week is when that championship happened. It was a great game.
So tell me about how many championships they've won in a row.
They won 3. Yeah, there's won 3 in a row.
Okay, enough of that. Okay, hardships and differences.
Hardships and indifferences. I guess the hardship would be going through life, I guess. Life's not always fair. My motto is, you know, the fair is something that comes, you know, twice a year, the state and agriculture fair. You know, life's not going to be fair. We just hope that it will be equitable. So in with that, I guess for my generation, a hardship is probably dealing with society. There's always going to be stumbling blocks. There's always going to be racial racism or gender racism. But with that, we just have to know that, you know, treat people as you want them to be treated. Go through life, try and do the best that you can, and hope that we will make this place a better place than what we found.
Okay, she's got differences. I don't know if she means the difference in the time you were growing up or the different times that they are now. I'm not know where she's coming in.
I really don't know either. I guess the difference would be, as opposed to, like I had said earlier, things in my generation have definitely been made better because of the people who have lived in the past, the people who went through the civil rights struggle, who integrated lunch counters, who integrated schools, who protested the inequality. So that has made, over time, society has changed and evolved into a much more tolerant society, a much more diverse society, a society that is embracing the diversity of its citizens.